Well, I'm not a historian like Dr. Kirundu, and I did not have the benefit of meeting Kenyatta, like the Reverend here. So much of what I have is what I have researched on and found out in the books that are there, and also in some of the interviews, as Professor Dugo was mentioning. And most of it has been said, and we will not emphasize more on what has already been talked about. So I'll just take you through quickly what I had prepared. And to start us off, there was that quote that Kenyatta gave, especially during the independence period, and he said that many people think that now there is hope. Now I can see the sun of freedom shining. Riches will go down like manna from heaven. I tell you, there will be nothing from heaven. We must all work hard with our hands to save ourselves from poverty, ignorance, and disease. This, I do that because many times we tend to wait. Unasikia watu wengi wanasema tunaomba serikali ifanye hii na hii, instead of really working hard on the things that we are supposed to do. So the background, as has been said, that one has been said where he was born, and the parents who were there. And we see that his father, between 1896 to 1909, that's when his father died, is not very clear. And also the date of birth is not very clear for Kenyatta, because even himself, he couldn't really say the actual date when he was born. So looking at Kenyatta and his family, he wants to see that after his mother's death, he moved, as a Reverend had said, and about the age of 10, he was infected with Jiga, where he was taken to surgery in the Church of Scotland Mission. So he married the first wife in 1919, that was Grace Wabu, and the second wife was married on May 11, 1942. That was when he was in Britain, and Prof had mentioned that in the beginning. Then the third wife was in 1946, that was Grace Wanjiko, who died when giving birth in 1950. And they had one daughter who survived. So that Grace was the daughter of Senior Chief Koinange. Then the fourth wife, and the best known due to her role as the First Lady, was Mama Ngina Kenyatta, who got the children as stated there, including the President of Kenya directly. So we can see that Kenyatta, as a family man, he always moved around with his children, those who were available, and maybe he had a particular liking for Uhuru, because in most of the photos that I found, Uhuru was next to him. So that's also, it's not very clear, to have a point. That's Mama Ngina and Uhuru and the first daughter. Then his education, facilitated by what he had seen when he had in the Jigas. He went away and became a pupil at the mission, and that's where he studied Bible, English, mathematics, and carpentry, and paid his school fees by working as a houseboy and a cook for a European settler. So that is the 1909 there. And he completed elementary school by 1912 and became an apprentice carpenter. You can see him as a student with his plane there. Yeah. Then after that, later on, he enrolled, because he was not able to get education after 1912. He enrolled at St. Oaks College in Birmingham for a year, that is 1931. Sorry, I forgot to state that. And studied English at Kuias College, what the Reverend was saying, by 1932. And in August of 1932, he visited Russia and studied economics. And between 1934 to 38, he studied at University College of London, where he worked on Barrow's Kikuyu Dictionary. He helped the making of the Kikuyu Dictionary. Then, while there, he enrolled in the London School of Economics to study social anthropology. And that is the time he also lectured, wrote articles, as Reverend was saying. And among the positions he held then was assistant in phonetics at the School of Oriental and African Studies. So, Maimoniski, those who do anthropology will know this person. He influenced Kenyatta in writing his thesis after he was doing his master's. And during that time, he published a revised version of his thesis as facing Mount Kenya, that is 1938. This work was one of the earliest publications by an African discussing his own culture without apology made considerable, impact. And he asserted the right of Africans to speak for themselves and not only to be discussed by foreign anthropologists or missionaries, and more importantly, he declared that Africans should be proud of their own cultural heritage. This is a challenge to us, that how proud are we of our cultures? Do we let others define who we are? Do we join them in discussing the negative part of our culture? Or are we just silent? So he developed, as Reverend had said, his case around the issue of female circumcision, which was under attack. And not to go much of what had been said earlier, is that his assertion of strong values inherent in Kikuyu society is not, however, without controversies. There are those who will fault him for supporting the female circumcision. But his work is still being even in print today, because it's a good work that was done then and was done for anybody who would understand what he had done. So by 1942, he published My People of Kikuyu and the Life of Chief Wamome. So in his faith, Reverend had said that this is Kenyatta, young and barefooted Jomo Kenyatta after his baptism. So as I say, he came from a very humble background, and as prophets mentioned earlier, that when he went to be baptized, he wanted the name John Peter, and he was told, no, you cannot have two names. So he said, let me have time and think. Okay? So a challenge to us also, do we take time to think, or do we rush to decisions? So with his thinking, he formed the name Johnston. Stone is the rock, and as Jesus had given Peter the name rock. So he achieved his motive. So he also attended missionary service, that is in classes, in 1918, while working as a storekeeper. So 1922, around in October 1920, he was asked by the church, as he had said, he had married without the church rights or drinking liquor, and he was ordered to get married before the European magistrate. And by 1922, he got married to Grace in a civil ceremony, and also got rehabilitated with the church. So the church was, from the interviews we hear that the Church of Scotland, which is PCA today, they had taken a Bible to him in 1965 when now as president. And when he was president, he did not want to identify with one church for political reasons, so that he doesn't seem to be alienate another. So, and Kamau Ogogo influenced the Kenyatta family to go to the Catholic Church, as he was already a Roman Catholic priest. And Kenyatta himself never moved from the Church of Scotland, saying that he need not be baptized twice, but he allowed his family to go there. That's why even to this day you see them going to Catholic. So his employment history, some of it were said, that he worked as a houseboy, then he worked on a side farm in Thika. Then in 1917 he evaded forced recruitment, that was during the First World War, and he went to work in Narok. Then by 1918, he returned to Nairobi and got employed as a storekeeper. By 1922, he got to the Stores Clerk, the Nairobi Municipal Council, where he was a water meter reader. So, and also when he was in Britain, he worked as a farmer in a farm. So his politics, I will skip this bit because mostly has been mentioned, how he got into the politics, and by 1929, he was sent to Britain to represent African grievances before the colonial office. You mentioned that, but he became the principal, and he began organizing political movement which represented Oloma and the president of KAU by 1947. And around 1948 to 51, he toured and lectured around the country condemning idleness, robbery, and hard work, while campaigning for the return of land given to white settlers. So it was then that he called for independence within 3 years, and this resulted to the burning of KAU, which also marked the beginning of the Mau Mau freedom fight. So during that time also he was not able to control, as Dr. Kirubi was saying, he was not able to control those who were talking about the violent takeover or violence which is in a way the Mau Mau. And by 1952, the extremists reacted to that, the British government reacted to that by declaring the state of emergency, and after that he was arrested and as Dr. Kirubi has mentioned. What is interesting is that in November he was charged with managing Mau Mau at Kapenguria, and he was defended by Prince. The Prince was a Queen's Council, Diwan Chairman, and Lal, an Indian MP sent by the Prime Minister of Nehru, another Lolas Kapila, Nigerian advocate. So that shows that he had created a good network with other leaders all over Africa and even in India who came to his defense. So by 1960, 61 there were party elections, and he was elected president of KANU in absentia. He was still in detention, but those who were leading then, the Odingas and Tom Mboya, said that there will be no negotiations without Kenyatta being released. So I want to skip that bit because it has been mentioned. And here we say that Kenyatta recognized the pitfalls of nationalism and at all times supported a Pan-African agenda which rose above party nationalism, petty nationalism, so that we don't just say we are Kenya and we can't cooperate with others, we need to work together. So on his leadership and governance, we say that his first years were dominated by restructuring and rebuilding the nation. And we said, Dr. Kirubi has mentioned how he would convince the other party to join him in the government. So as president, he headed a strong central government and successful constitutional amendments increased his authority, giving him the power to arrest political opponents and detain them without trial, though he used this very frequently. So to forestall any tribal-based opposition, Kenyatta consistently appointed members of different ethnic groups to his government, though he relied mostly on his fellow Kikuyu. So in general, Kenya enjoyed remarkable political stability under Kenyatta's rule. No conflicts within government leadership did break up at times. So then Kenyatta obviously had ideas, but this honeymoon was quickly over because of the political crisis that were there, and there was even an attempt, a coup attempt in 1964, just a few months into his administration, and there were also numerous hopes in other African countries that also now redefined his leadership, and he started now taking more care of who he appointed into key ministries, and also now looking at the opposition so that he also doesn't fall into the same category of being imposed as a leader. So he appointed those relatives and relatives to sensitive positions in the security forces, and we see this now even continuing with the presidents that we have had because of the issue of coups that have happened. The president is imposed mostly by the military, so we see them now, they appoint people who they can trust, who they will not turn against them. So to many of the white community, they were afraid. How do we let somebody we have jails, how do we let that person be the president now? Okay, but Kenyatta was able to confirm these politicians, his critics, and he ruled even hurriedly in the relation between the African, the Asians, and the European communities, and he involved ministers from all the tribes. So he enjoyed, he had, as Dr. Kuku mentioned, he rejected the socialist cause and supported the Arab bill that is put together, and he heavily relied on the free market economy. So as a result of his policies, Kenya's gross national product grew almost fivefold from 1971 to 1981. And the rate of economic growth was among the highest on the continent in the first 2 decades after independence. But although this was the case, the economy grew, the gap between the rich and the poor also increased, such that many people did not benefit. So in foreign policy, he consistently friendly towards the West, and he worked even if they had imprisoned him, and he made Kenya the most stable African country and one of the most economically dynamic. And at the time of his death, Kenya was ranked high among African countries, both in terms of political stability and economic growth. So that is the celebration at independence. And also in 1963, also celebrating those is when Kanu went to power, so jumping today, we have Togoya and Mwai Kibaki celebrating. So also those who are with some of his friends, who, as we said, he was keen to get these people even from other tribes to work with him. So much of as president and the opposing camps, we say that although he encouraged the criticism, he was also very stern when it came to other areas. Looking at him as a scholar, as an intellectual, he was a prolific writer. He wrote many articles and also wrote several books. One of which being Facing Mount Kenya by people of Kikuyu. Let me show you some of the books that he wrote. Yeah, by people of Kikuyu, Suffering Without Bitterness, Kenya, the land the land of conflict, yeah? Among others that I may not have captured. As you can see him in his library, even in his old age, reading. Racial hatred, it must be ended. Where there has been tribal animosity, it will be finished. Let us not dwell upon the bitterness of the past. I would rather look to the future, to the good new Kenya, not to the bad old days. If we can create this sense of national direction and identity, we shall have gone a long way to solving our economic problems. We still have these issues happening to this day. Then the last one is, our children may learn about the heroes of the past. Our task is to make ourselves the architects of the future. Here we are looking at the past, But in himself, by 1981, there he had said, yes, we learn from the past, but then our task today, we need to be architects of today. So that is at the funeral.